Varanesh, a kingdom of gold and shadow. Opulent palaces shimmered under the bright sun, their golden domes reflecting the light like beacons of hope. Yet, beneath this splendor, shadows lurked, whispering secrets of a time long forgotten. Whispers of a lost heir echoed through the grand halls. These corridors, once filled with laughter and music, now stood silent, save for the faint murmurs of a forgotten legacy. The walls seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the return of the one true heir. King Bhaskar, a ruler shrouded in sorrow. His eyes, once bright with the fire of youth, now bore the weight of countless sleepless nights. The burden of a kingdom without its rightful heir weighed heavily on his shoulders, casting a shadow over his reign. The truth, a dangerous secret. Hidden away in a locked chest guarded by the most loyal of the king's men, lay a scroll. This scroll held the key to the kingdom's future. A secret so powerful it could change the fate of Varanesh forever. The people yearned for their true king. In the bustling town squares and quiet village corners, the common folk spoke in hushed tones of the lost heir. Their hearts ached for the return of the one who would bring justice and prosperity back to their land. A prophecy foretold his return. In the ancient texts, guarded by the wise soothsayers, lay a prophecy. It spoke of a time when the lost heir would return, bringing with him an era of peace and prosperity. The words of the prophecy were a beacon of hope in these dark times, a king of justice and valor. The prophecy described a king unlike any other, a ruler who would lead with a just hand and a brave heart. This king would restore the glory of Varanesh and bring an end to the shadows that plagued the land. But hope dwindled with each passing year. As the sun set over the villages and the shadows grew longer, the people of Varanesh began to lose faith. The years passed and the promise of the prophecy seemed like a distant dream, fading with the light of each day. The king's advisors feared the worst. In the dimly lit chambers of the palace, the king's advisors gathered, their faces etched with worry. They whispered among themselves, fearing that the prophecy might never come to pass and that the kingdom would remain in darkness. The prophecy, a threat to the throne. The very words that promised hope also posed a threat. If the lost heir were to return, it would mean a shift in power, a challenge to the current rule. The king and his advisors knew that the prophecy was a double-edged sword. A shadow loomed over Varanesh. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and a sense of foreboding filled the air. A shadowy figure, unseen but felt, seemed to watch over the kingdom, waiting for the right moment to strike. The fate of the kingdom hung in the balance. With tensions rising and the threat of war looming, the future of Varanesh was uncertain. The kingdom stood at a crossroads, its fate resting on the shoulders of a lost heir and the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. King Bhaskar paced the throne room, his heart heavy with unspoken grief. The weight of the crown an unbearable burden. Years ago, tragedy struck. His brother, the true heir, vanished without a trace, stolen in the night. A conspiracy silenced the truth. Bhaskar, forced to assume the throne, a king in name only, his reign a constant reminder of his brother's stolen birthright, he vowed to find the truth, to restore the rightful heir. A lone traveller arrived at the city gates, dusty robes, weary eyes. Arvind, his name. He sought refuge, a story to tell. The guards eyed him with suspicion, a commoner, unremarkable. Yet something in his gaze, a spark of nobility, a familiar glint. Arvind shared tales of his travels, stories of distant lands, forgotten lore. He spoke of Varanesh, its legends, its lost king. The guards listened, captivated. Could this be him? The prophecy whispered of a sign. Word of Arvind spread like wildfire. In every corner of the town, whispers of his name could be heard. From the bustling market stalls to the quiet corners of the village, everyone was talking about him. The town crier's voice echoed through the streets, ensuring that no one was left unaware of the tales surrounding Arvind. People flocked to hear his tales. They gathered in large numbers, eager to listen to the stories that had captivated their imaginations. In the taverns, around the hearths and in the open squares, the air was thick with anticipation. The storytellers painted vivid pictures of Arvind's adventures, each tale more enthralling than the last. Stories of the lost heir, his courage, his kindness. These tales spoke of a young man who was not only brave but also compassionate. He was a figure who stood up for the downtrodden, who extended a helping hand to those in need. His actions were a beacon of hope in a time of uncertainty. Each story resonated with Arvind. As he listened to these tales, he felt a deep connection to the characters and events being described. It was as if the stories were speaking directly to his soul, awakening something within him that had long been dormant, a feeling of belonging, a pull towards his destiny. Arvind couldn't shake the feeling that these stories were more than just fiction. They felt like a call to action, a reminder of a purpose he had yet to fulfill. The horizon beckoned him, promising answers to the questions that plagued his mind. He felt the truth within his heart. Deep down, Arvind knew that there was something special about him. The stories of the lost heir resonated with him on a profound level. It was as if his heart was telling him that he was destined for something greater. He was the lost heir. The realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. The pieces of his past, the fragments of his memories, all pointed to one undeniable truth. He was the heir that everyone spoke of, the one who was meant to bring change and hope to the land. Driven by this newfound purpose, Arvind embarked on a quest for truth. With determination in his heart and a clear goal in mind, he set out on a journey that would take him across vast landscapes and through countless challenges. Each step he took was fueled by the desire to uncover the truth about his identity and his destiny. He sought out ancient texts, consulted oracles, and delved into the wisdom of the past. Arvind knew that the answers he sought were hidden in the annals of history. He spent countless hours poring over ancient manuscripts, seeking guidance from wise scholars and interpreting the cryptic messages of the oracles. Anne spoke to the elders. The elders, with their vast knowledge and experience, provided him with insights that were invaluable. Their words were like pieces of a puzzle, each one bringing him closer to the truth. They spoke of prophecies and legends, of a time when the lost heir would return to restore balance to the land. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. With each revelation, Arvind felt a sense of clarity. The fragmented pieces of his past were coming together, forming a complete picture. He could see the path that lay ahead, and he knew that he was ready to embrace his destiny. Guided by an ancient map, Arvind found himself at the royal palace, a hidden passage shrouded in darkness. He descended, heart pounding. He reached a chamber untouched for centuries. Cobwebs adorned the walls, dust covered the floor. A sense of anticipation hung in the air. In the center, a solitary chest lay forgotten. Arvind approached cautiously, his breath catching in his throat. This was it, the key to his past. With trembling hands, Arvind opened the chest. Inside, a gleaming royal seal, the emblem of Varanesh radiating with ancient power. Beside the seal, a rolled parchment. Arvind untied the ribbon, his heart racing. As he unfurled the parchment, a gasp escaped his lips. A portrait, a young prince, his eyes mirroring Arvind's own. Below the portrait, a name, his name. The truth washed over him. He was the rightful heir. The court assembled a sea of anxious faces. The grand hall was filled with the murmurs of nobles and commoners alike, all awaiting the momentous decision that would shape their future. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the very walls of the ancient courtroom could sense the gravity of the occasion. King Bhaskar, his face etched with worry, watched Arvind approach. The weight of the kingdom's fate rested heavily on his shoulders. His eyes, usually so full of wisdom and strength, now betrayed a flicker of doubt. He knew that this day would either mark the beginning of a new era or plunge Varanesh into chaos. Arvind held up the royal seal, the emblem of his birthright. The seal, a symbol of his lineage and the legitimacy of his claim, gleamed under the torchlight. It was a moment that had been years in the making, a culmination of countless trials and tribulations. The crowd leaned in, their collective breath held in suspense. A hush fell over the court. The silence was almost palpable, a stark contrast to the earlier buzz of conversation. Every eye was fixed on Arvind, every ear straining to catch his next words. It was as if time itself had paused, waiting for the young nobleman to speak. He spoke, his voice filled with the strength of his ancestors. "I stand before you not as a conqueror, but as a rightful heir," he began, his tone steady and resolute. "I seek not to impose my will through force, but to earn your trust and loyalty through just and compassionate rule." He would claim his rightful place, but not through force. His words resonated with the assembly, a promise of a different kind of leadership, one that valued wisdom over might and justice over tyranny. "Together we can build a future where every citizen of Varanesh prospers," he declared, his eyes shining with conviction. He would rule with justice and compassion, ushering in an era of prosperity for all. His vision was clear, a kingdom where fairness and kindness reigned supreme. "Let us turn the page and write a new chapter in the history of Varanesh," he urged, his voice carrying the weight of his noble intentions. The crowd erupted in cheers. The tension that had gripped the hall melted away, replaced by a wave of hope and excitement. People from all walks of life, from the highest noble to the humblest peasant, joined in the celebration. It was a moment of unity, a collective sigh of relief and a shared dream of a brighter future. A new dawn had broken over Varanesh. The first rays of sunlight pierced through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the kingdom. It was a symbolic moment, the beginning of a new era filled with promise and potential. The darkness of uncertainty had been dispelled, making way for the light of hope. The lost heir had returned. Arvind stood tall, his heart swelling with pride and determination. He had reclaimed his birthright, not just for himself, but for the people of Varanesh. As he looked out over the jubilant crowd, he knew that this was just the beginning. Together, they would forge a future that honored the past while embracing the possibilities of tomorrow.